So I've spent a lot of time working as a freelance filmmaker. So between the Vine days and working with Maddie, there was 2 years there where all I did was freelance video production. And when it comes to quoting jobs, it was pretty simple. I had a day rate, a half day rate, an editing rate, and a camera rental rate. After a little while of doing freelance, quoting can be pretty easy, but when you're starting out, this is pretty tough. Recently, I was asked to do a job that was very out of the normal of what I usually do. A client asked me if I could help them automate their process. So I looked into it and I thought creating a simple After Effects script would be the best course of action to automating their video production. So I did a bit of research to see how hard it would actually be to create your own After Effects plugin. So I thought I could probably do this. So I told them that I would give it a shot. And of course, their next question was, how much is it going to cost? So this was a little bit weird because I'm not really a programmer. Although I knew I could get the job done, I know it's going to take me a while and I'm going to spend a lot of time doing research, but I'm going to learn and I'm going to enjoy the process. So I came up with a solution that I'm pretty happy with and I wanted to share it with you. So when I was trying to figure out how much I should charge for this, my first thought was how much would a pro charge and how long would it take him to get it done? Now I thought this is a pretty simple After Effects script, so I would assume a pro could do it in half a day. Now looking into how much programmers get paid, it can be anywhere from $50 an hour to $200 an hour because there's so many different types of programmers, but let's just assume $100 an hour. So with this logic, we could assume maybe it would take him 5 hours and he would charge $500 roughly to get it done. And the pro is probably going to do a great job at this project. So with that in mind, I thought it's probably going to take me about 2 weeks of learning and troubleshooting and making it work. And I'm only going to be able to work on it in my evenings and spare time on weekends. And I probably won't do as good of a job as a pro would. So in a scenario like this, I would recommend quoting around $200 to $300. In a lot of ways, this is very similar to a beginner getting their first gig. I like to think that price gap is sort of you investing in your education on the project, because you're going to spend a lot of time researching and trying to figure out how to get this job done. Now to keep this short, as a beginner, I would suggest figuring out what the pro charges and charge less than what the pro's charging, but expect to spend more time, because there's probably going to be a lot of learning and patience required to complete your first gig. So let's talk about hourly rates. Now this is a little bit different for every industry. Some industries are very set in stone as to what you should be charging hourly and you should charge for your time. But I want to talk about when you should be charging hourly or when you should be charging a flat rate for the whole project. It makes sense to charge hourly if you know exactly how much time you need to invest into a project. For example, if someone asks you to make a video for them, and it's very similar to every other video you've done, you should have a good idea of exactly how long it will take you, and you could charge a day rate or a half day rate. This is when I think hourly makes sense. Or for example, if you're getting hired to be on set for a day. You know exactly how long you're going to be on set. You're going to get in, you're going to get out, you're going to charge for that exact amount of time. Or maybe you're shooting a wedding. You're going to show up first thing in the morning and you're going to leave right at the end of the reception. Whether it's photo or video, in this scenario, they both make sense to charge a day rate. And just like we said before, when you're figuring out your day rate, we want to figure out what the other pros are charging and work our way back from there. If you think you're just as good as every other wedding photographer, you should charge the same as every other wedding photographer or a little bit less. Or if you think you're better, charge a little more. But let's talk about when you should charge a flat rate or a project rate. This is what I would recommend for a lot of beginners. If someone comes to you and asks you to do a video or photography for them, you might not know exactly how long it's going to take, so it's probably best to charge a flat project rate. Now, I'd recommend doing this exactly how I mentioned earlier in this video. Figure out what other people are charging, figure out how long it's going to take them, and work your way back from there. This has been the formula that I use, as well as many other creators out there. So why don't we talk to another freelancer and get a second opinion on the whole how to charge as a beginner. So I'm going to give a call to one of my good friends, Mike Fess. I've worked with him on many projects. He's sort of been a bit of a business mentor to me. Ever since I was in high school, he was getting me to do After Effects animations for him, and I really appreciate him, and he is an expert when it comes to business and anything creative. Let's give him a call. All right, Michael Fess from Maxwell Creative. Thank you so much for giving me your time today.
Oh, no worries, man. No worries. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. So I'm working on this video right now about freelancers quoting their first jobs, and I wanted to get some thoughts from you.
Sure, absolutely.
So one of the things we talked about was charging flat rate versus charging hourly. What are some of your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, the proverbial question, right? I feel like this is the biggest. Feels like anyone who has a higher level of success is don't charge hourly, you'll screw yourself. You'll screw yourself out of potential profits and stuff like that, which, I totally see. I totally see that. I can just speak from my personal experience and kind of how I operate is I think the first thing is to kind of understand and discover and figure out your value.
Right.
And, we've talked about this in the past where, I just think it's important the first thing you need to figure out is what is my time worth an hour for my skill set? and you go from there. So the way I do it is and I work in a number of different disciplines, and so I just kind of know my value over a number of years. Been at this for 15 years now, so I just kind of know my value at
Nice.
certain disciplines, whether it's video or graphics or UX UI
Right.
design, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just basically, when I get a client contact me, and again, it's taken time to hone my skill on this, and even 15 years in, to encourage anyone who's watching, there's sometimes I nail it, and there's sometimes I completely biff it.
Totally.
Um, a job that actually you and I, Matt, worked on recently. I won't say the client's name because I don't know if I'm allowed to, but
Yeah.
I literally estimated the time for the edit at like half of what it actually took. And it was the first time we'd worked with them. So, this
Right.
type of project. So I didn't know, but I basically say, this is the value I place on my time. And then I quote the project based on that. And then the
Right.
quote is the quote.
Right.
So I don't charge hourly, but my project that I quote is based upon that. Now, what I do is I always add
Right.
25%. So, but if I think it's going to take 8 hours to edit a quick, like, little cinematic promo or something like that, I quote it. I always add 25% and say 10. And then the
Gotcha.
cool
Yeah.
thing is that that's the opportunity for me. I can say, well, hey, I should be able to edit this in 8. I mean, best case scenario, everything just kind of flies. Maybe I edit this in 6. But the
Mm.
client has still received the quote at 10 hours. And that's kind of how I've operated. I've found it to be an effective way of pricing out projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, now that's for editing and time. And as you know, there's a lot more involved with videography and cinematography than just your
Right.
time. There's your gear. There's, how much tech, how much are you bringing to a set. There's all
Right.
that type of stuff to consider. When it comes to actually on-site shooting, I just have kind of have a flat day rate. And again, it just took time over a number of years, to figure out, okay, where should I land based upon the
Right.
quality of my gear, the level of my expertise, how much should I be charging for a half day or a day rate?
Do you have any advice for someone who doesn't quite know exactly what their value is or how they should be quoting that?
For sure. I think asking people who are in the field, like asking
Yeah.
people in your area. So, you and I are in the Toronto area, just north of Toronto. So it's like, find someone in your area that's doing something similar to you and network, build relationships. Say like, hey, like,
Right.
and some people might want to guard that information closely, but like, give me a ballpark. Like, what do you think? And
Hmm.
then assess yourself versus them. So the way that I kind of found my hourly rate was, I have some friends that work down in Toronto
Yeah.
and are quite successful at what they do. And so it's just like, hey, through relationship and friendship, like, what's your ballpark day rate? What's your ballpark hourly? And
Right.
then assess myself. I over time my rates have probably become a bit more comparable to theirs. But initially I was
Yeah.
like, these guys are like top level, like, doing television commercials and that type of stuff. So it's like, obviously I'm
Right.
not going to charge the same rate, but it kind of gives you a ballpark and then go from there.
So what would you say about overcharging or undercharging on some of the beginner jobs?
I will say this: undercharging is a great way to build a portfolio and to build a client base that trusts you.
Right.
Undercharge and overdeliver is a great way to start things. My wife does, or used to do. She's kind of wrapped up, but did wedding photos for
Mm.
close to a decade, and she started that way as well, and built her business that way.
Right.
So I'm not opposed to, for a season, maybe taking a little bit of a hit to build a portfolio, maybe doing things. Be selective in who you do that for. Find friends and family that are, that it's a little bit more sweet to kind of give a discounted rate to,
Yeah.
and work for them at a discounted rate to build up that portfolio if you're going to do it that way. Because again, you're building portfolio, building a relationship. I think it's important to, again, accurately assess yourself and charge a realistic rate. You don't want to price yourself out of jobs by
Right.
any means. And it's hard because sometimes, you'll hear of a rate that, like, a big media conglomerate's charging for a day rate. And if you go in and charge the same, but you show up with like an SLR or mirrorless and, a
Mm.
few lights, you have to be realistic. It's not the same thing.
Right.
So sometimes to build a client relationship, it's worth undercharging a little bit. An AdWords kind of management project that we're handling right now, we've intentionally gone in and kind of, through relationship, actually they told us what one of the other companies was bidding, and
Mm.
so we matched it, and it is a bit low for what we would typically charge hourly for what we're doing. but this is a company that works with Netflix, HBO, CNN. It would be a big time client for us, and they've already expressed interest in working in different areas with us outside of just like ads management and
Right.
stuff like that.
Right.
So sometimes it's worth taking, charging a little bit less to kind of forge that client relationship because,
Right.
you know, one of my business partners, his name's Mark, he told me a story one time where I kind of learned that he, in the early, not, or not early, kind of like more like the mid to late 90s, was working with a government organization. And he went in and he kind of he undersold himself, got into it, and realized that he undersold himself. And his first reaction was like, "I need to charge more for this." But he's like, "You know what? No, my code is my code. I'm going to eat this. I'm going to deliver a great product." And
Right.
that was like the late 90s. Now here we are, 2020. He's still working for that
Wow.
organization on a regular basis, and he figures
It's amazing.
that he's probably made between 2.5 and $3 million
Wow. Yeah. Over the time.
working with that organization over the past 20 years. So
That's
sometimes you have to
amazing.
like
Yeah.
keep the big picture in mind with building client relationships.
Right.
The big thing with the way I kind of quote, the reason that I've decided to not charge an hourly but charge by project and do it it's kind of a hybrid of an hourly
Right.
project based model where it's like I'm quoting based upon what I think my hourly worth is, but it
Right.
protects you and it protects the client. Because if
Yeah.
you quote $5,000 on something and then, oh wait, things got out of hand, here's an invoice for $10,000.
Yeah.
That's not good for client relationships. It
Yeah.
doesn't build trust. Yeah, so that's just
Yeah.
things to consider.
Totally. Yeah. At the end of the day, our time is the most valuable thing we have. So we always have to keep it in mind. Even when we're charging project rates, our time is the most important thing.
For sure. And I'll say this too, because like when you subcontract, like so say you're doing a project, you bring someone on and you subcontract at a certain hourly rate. You need to take into account that you have to manage that person. So, you
Mm,
have to tweak your hourly as well. Um,
right.
tweak their hourly. So if you find someone who's willing to work for half your rate, what I typically do is I typically still charge them out at my full rate, understanding that okay, yeah, maybe they're going to work for less than I would on an hourly basis, but I'm still going to have to put the time, the effort.
Right. Awesome. Well, I think that was some really great advice there. I think there was a lot of bits of knowledge, and I really appreciate you giving me your time and your expertise here.
Anytime, man. Always enjoy getting together and seeing you.
So let's wrap this up. Is there anything that we can like promote for you? I mean, obviously, your website.
No, man. Like honestly, I'm just glad to.
Oh, sorry, you're cutting out a little bit there.
Oh, no worries. Like the hard thing is, I never went to school for any of this stuff. It's all
Yeah.
self-taught over a long period of time and
Hmm.
making a lot of mistakes and you know doing a whole lot of reading and researching and watching tutorials and figuring it out. So I'm just glad that you're putting this out because
Hmm.
this is crucial stuff that I wish,
Right.
10, 15 years ago when I was really starting out, I wish I would have had someone around. The hard thing
Yeah.
was back then, I didn't even know where to look. I didn't know who to ask. And
Hmm.
there wasn't really this YouTube culture where there's these guys putting content out that I could go and see and learn from. So I just
Yeah.
hope that there's like honestly even one thing in this that's meaningful to somebody and help someone and but yeah, like honestly,
That's
if anyone wants
amazing.
to reach out, the contact forms on my web. Social media is at Michael Fess or at Maxwell Creative. Reach out. More than happy to help or chat or whatever.
All right, Michael, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you helping out. I think there was a lot of incredible stuff here, and I really hope someone gets something from this.
For sure, bro. Anytime.
Sweet. Well, I'm going to let you enjoy the sun. I'm going to get back to work. Have yourself a wonderful day.
You too, buddy. Talk soon.
So I hope there's something in this video that you can take away from this. I just want to give a big thanks to Michael Fess from Maxwell Creative. It's really important to have other entrepreneurs and creatives in your life to learn and grow from. Like he said in our call, if you have any questions, feel free to DM him on Instagram or send him a contact form on his website. Links will be in the description below. Anyways, thank you so much for checking out this video. If you guys have any other thoughts, please leave a comment down below. I love hearing other people's opinions. I'm not always right, but hopefully I can at least be a little bit helpful. Anyways, consider subscribing and I will see you next time.